So I wanted to talk to you about GitHub Copilot. Have you heard about that?
Nope.
They are billing this as your AI pair programmer.
Oh, I have heard of this. I saw a programmer post on Twitter a picture of a guy completely shooting himself in the head.
What was like a joke about it?
Yeah, I think it's something that would potentially kill all programmers.
What is it? It's an AI trained on open source code from GitHub. GitHub is this massive, obviously, online service where people store their code.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken at least some of that code that's open source and they've fed it into a machine learning AI that's learned all about the code that's in these various projects. And it's now able to suggest code back to you.
Suggest code? Oh my God.
So it's
right.
so it's almost like, you know, like the autocomplete on your phone where you start typing a couple of letters.
Yeah, okay.
And then it kind of somehow magically knows.
Because it knows words I've written in the past, yeah.
So
So GitHub knows all code that's ever existed.
Well, not all code that's ever existed, but yeah.
A huge chunk of it anyway.
Yeah, so just imagine that. It's just able to just go, hey, I've seen something like this before.
Yeah.
This is you've started it, this is how it finishes.
Oh.
And it kind of suggests that for you. Or you can write a comment. You could say, I want a function that reverses a string or whatever in a comment, and then it will just go, bam, there it is. Done it for you.
But it doesn't know what you're going to write. I know it knows all code that's been written in the past, but it doesn't know what your code is going to be yet, because you haven't written it yet.
No, so you have to give it like a prompt as to what the functionality needs to be. So in all the examples, you know, people say, I want a function that validates a US phone number or whatever. And then it just goes ping, and then it's done that. You don't have to go off and go, well, oh God, what does a US phone number look like? How am I going to write a regex? Can I just get a regex that already exists from a reliable source?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Whatever it is, you don't have to come up with that logical thought process. You just say, hey, I need this function that does this thing, and it will do it for you.
That makes sense then. Something like regex, which is quite a complicated thing. It's a complicated thing, but it's been written many times. Like the regex for identifying email address, for example.
Yeah.
It looks quite complicated, but actually it's probably the same in a lot of projects.
The quality of the regex function that validates the email address is probably not what makes your project better than someone else's, is it?
Yeah,
It's been done. So currently this only works in Visual Studio Code, and it's like a closed program at the minute. You have to apply to try it out.
Okay.
So I haven't got access yet, and I don't know anyone that has. And, you know, all I know about it is from what I've seen on things like Twitter and what's on their own homepage and stuff like that.
Okay. I don't really like programming stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, if there's someone or something, some clever AI that can tell me exactly what I need to program, then yeah, I'm all for it.
It's probably like a time saver, right? It sounds
exactly.
quite cool. It sounds almost like futuristic.
Well, exactly, yeah. It's
You know.
like you've sort of got this little robot buddy who's helping you out.
You can see why there's a buzz around it, can't you?
Yes.
I mean, you said a buddy helping you out. GitHub actually call it AI pair programming, right? Because pair programming is this thing where you get together two developers and you kind of work on a project together, and the idea is that you will get to a better result by filling in each other's shortcomings in the project.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if you can do that, but without needing a second person. You know, you've got some kind of AI thing that does it for you.
It's like a little robot next to you going, "You've done it wrong. Here's how you should do it instead." But I suppose
like
we've always
from the Jetsons.
Like from the yes. I suppose we've always had computers being able to tell us that we've done things wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like saying there's a syntax error, that sort of thing. But actually, it's quite nice that it can suggest what to do instead.
Yeah.
I like that. That's proactive. Yeah.
I mean, the other narrative that I've seen, though, is that this kind of like, they're taking our jobs, kind of...
They took our jobs!
Yeah, like people worried that suddenly this AI is going to mean that developers aren't required anymore.
Well, you always need someone to instigate it, don't you?
Yeah,
to,
true.
like, start it. It's going to get it wrong. Isn't this going to get it wrong?
Well, okay, so that leads me into a couple of things that give me a bit of a pause for concern.
Okay, well, what I mean by getting it wrong is, the reason why that's important is because you need a human being, to look at it, what this robot's come up with, and go, actually, that's not what we wanted.
Yeah.
Because if this is perfectly clever and gets it right all the time, it will take our jobs, probably. But you need someone with a human brain there to sort of nudge it in the right direction, going, this isn't quite what we were looking for. It needs to be like this instead.
I 100% agree. So I got into reading the FAQ that they've got on their homepage.
Okay.
People have got so many questions about this in terms of, do I own the code that it generates, for example? Or,
Oh my
there's
God, yeah,
loads
of
of stuff
course.
to think about.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just read a couple of snippets from that FAQ.
Yeah.
And this is GitHub's response. So the code it suggests may not always work or even make sense.
Well, that's fine. A lot of the code that I write might not work and might not make sense.
It's true. It says, while we're working hard to make GitHub Copilot better, code suggested by GitHub Copilot should be carefully tested, reviewed, and vetted like any other code. As the developer, you are always in charge.
Right. Yes. So it's like the developer is now the boss of this AI, whipping the
Yes.
AI going, do some work,
Yeah.
little robot.
The other thing that they say is GitHub Copilot doesn't actually test the code it suggests, so the code may not even compile or run. GitHub Copilot may suggest old or deprecated uses of libraries and languages. You can use the code anywhere, but you do so at your own risk.
Oh, this is a problem then. So GitHub obviously has a repository of all of the code that's been written in the past. Now, a lot of that will be old code.
Legacy code, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Things change and improve over time. Code changes and the frameworks change.
Presumably you would hope that they've only fed in the examples of the best code in the world. Like, presumably they're not taking all the code in the world. But
That's a good point,
But
yeah.
you don't know what their selection process was for what they fed in as a training data set.
If like 90% of the code in the world is terrible, I'm not saying it is,
It probably is.
but it probably is.
Yeah.
Then that means,
It's going to suggest 95% terrible code.
yeah.
So the thing that got my brain whirring is how similar this is to Tesla Autopilot. There's a strong analogy
The
there.
thing that drives your car,
Yes.
right?
Tesla's Autopilot is incredible, right? But it's not fully autonomous. You still have to have a human behind the wheel to take over
I see.
when it goes wrong, right? So
Yes.
So it's good enough that most of the time it can drive itself, but you have to be watching that if a human steps out and the car doesn't recognise that you need to step on the brakes
Yes.
and you need to swerve around.
Right, okay. So you as a programmer need to swerve around the bad code that it suggests.
The problem is, though, that as we know, humans just learn. It's good enough that humans learn to kind of just trust it. There's these stories, aren't there, of Teslas crashing and the human had got out the driving seat and sat in the back because the car was driving itself and it was doing a good enough job.
Right.
And of course, the human wasn't there. Or even just, the human was looking down at their phone and wasn't paying attention to the road.
Yeah.
Because the car does a good enough job most of the time that the human almost like switches off. I think the same's true with GitHub Copilot. I think that the human will almost switch off. I don't think the human's going to be vetting it as closely as they should be in all scenarios.
Right, okay.
I think people will go, oh yeah, the last 10 times I used Copilot, it worked fine. So I'm sure it's fine what it suggested in this scenario as well. It looks about right. And, I've tried it on these 2 cases. I bet it's fine. Let's roll with that.
But at least a programmer could test it.
They could
It's like an example.
but
If it could give you a good enough example that the developer could then go, oh yeah, that's good. I'll just change it slightly for my own means, and then test it. If it works, good.
yeah, I like that in theory, but I wonder in reality how often people will just accept what it gives them and be too lazy to check.
It's like copying and pasting an answer from Stack Overflow and just going, yes, that probably works.
So how many times? I mean, developers do that all the time. It's quite a normal thing. It's not even something I would say is to be frowned upon. Using Stack Overflow, it's a resource for programmers, right? I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about. But you should check it, right? But how often do people actually check it? How often do people just go, I'm going to just trust that? In the real world, like, we know what we're supposed to do, but I mean, the other thing is, much like in the Tesla scenario, you stop being a driver and you start being a supervisor of a driver. And in this case, developers stop becoming coders and they start becoming supervisors of code, right? And is that what did you get into the web industry and sort of coding and stuff to supervise something else coding? I don't think you did. Like, it saps a lot of the fun out of the problem solving, doesn't it? Like,
no, I never really wanted to be a robot's boss. Or maybe I did.
I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
Like, to me, it saps a lot of the fun out of it. A lot of the fun is the problem solving and the coming up with an elegant solution, and just supervising something else and going, yeah, you came up with something better than I ever could. Again, well done, you. Like, is that fun?
A robot will get promoted ahead of you. Then.
yeah.
And then it'll be supervising you.
Oh great. Yeah, you thought of those cases that I hadn't thought of. Well done. Like, I mean, that's just not fun at all, is it?
You're jealous of this robot already.
Robot jealousy. Yeah. But it's right though. Like checking code is a lot less fun than actually problem solving and writing code. I think.
Yes.
For me, it is anyway.
Yeah.
I did not particularly get into this industry to vet something that something else had generated.
Yeah.
That seems pretty boring to me. I personally, so there's obviously lots of times in history where software has actually had life and death consequences, right? You know, we think of code that we write as like not having much impact, and I suppose in our case it doesn't. We write web apps, and you know there isn't too much scope for actual real world or life threatening consequences from that. But you know, things like medical machines have software in them, right? If a medical machine goes wrong, it can have a life or death consequence.
Yeah, of course. Interfaces for aeroplanes, things like that.
Yeah. So I just think it's only a matter of time before there's a serious incident and there's an inquiry and they look back and they somehow trace it back to a piece of code that was written by an AI and that nobody checked properly.
Ooh,
you know, the whole thing about the Boeing 737 MAX crashing. Do you remember that recently?
No.
That was quite recently. So the Boeing 737 had a number of crashes and they had to ground the whole fleet of aeroplanes. And people died, you know, and that was traced back to a software problem where this MCAS system was pushing the nose of the plane down.
So it was software.
There was a chain of failures. Right?
So it was a line of
thing.
code that wasn't correct.
Well, it was more than that, right? There was a chain of failures that led up to it, so it wasn't one thing. But yeah, you know, you can just imagine planes dropping out the sky. They trace it back. What was it? Oh, the engineer at Boeing had relied on GitHub Copilot to write something, and you know it works 99.99% of the time. But once in a blue moon, the plane goes down. But I genuinely think, you know, it's only a matter of time before something like that happens, unless people are vigilant, and I don't think people will be that vigilant.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Is this program writing the whole piece of software for you, or is it doing it like line by line?
From the examples I've seen, it tends to write functions, right? So you might say, I want a function that can add two numbers together.
Right,
and then it would go pudding and it would like write that function for you pretty much. So it's not writing whole applications yet.
Oh, right. So you can't just tell it, oh, can you make Facebook for me, please? And then go off for a coffee. Then you come back and then it's made a complete clone of Facebook for you.
I don't think so. I don't think it's that smart yet.
Okay. I think this will be used as a tool for suggesting stuff, for coming up with ideas that you might not have necessarily thought of.
And if
it's used like that, I think that's fine.
Don't get me wrong, I think in 99% of the cases it's going to be a huge time saver and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just that 1% blind reliance on it that I think, much like Tesla Autopilot, 99.9% of the time it's amazing. It's a self-driving car. This is insane, right? It drives itself, but it's just that 0.01% of the time where it, for whatever reason, didn't recognise a pedestrian stepping out into the road and the person driving it wasn't watching and it mowed them down. That concerns me. And I don't think people are necessarily thinking about that. The other thing, just one more point from their FAQ that they say is, the technical preview includes filters to block offensive words and avoid synthesizing suggestions in sensitive contexts. Due to the pre-release nature of the underlying technology, GitHub Copilot may sometimes produce undesired outputs, including biased, discriminatory, abusive, or offensive outputs.
Well, it's writing function names that are swear words. What's it doing? Writing racist code, maybe? I don't know.
Like, we've seen this before in AI and ML, haven't we? With things like, you know, systems that have fed in, you know, successful job applicants to then feed in a load of new CVs that you've never seen before, and it tries to pick out the best candidates. But if your manual approach was biased, then the machine learning is going to be biased.
Of course.
So if there's bias in the code that exists in GitHub that it's been trained from, the code it generates is going to be biased.
Mm-hmm.
So a really simple example, we run into this all the time, don't we? In a web form, a simple kind of discriminatory example, a name input field that only allows, say, more than a certain number of characters. So, for example, names with 2 letters, which are common in certain parts of the world, would be rejected as invalid.
I see.
So is GitHub Copilot going to suggest validating a name to at least a certain number of characters. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So any field that has an error that says, oh no, your name needs to be at least 3 letters, it'll inherit all those problems.
it might do. That's. I don't think it necessarily will, but it's just, it all depends on how good its training data is, doesn't it?
So it's only going to be as good as the code that's fed into it, yeah.
Yeah, we just don't know what it will come out with, right? We don't know whether what it will come out with is offensive or biased or abusive or...
Yeah.
And I think there's a danger, again, of just taking what it says as read without actually vetting it and thinking about it.
So is this something that you would use?
I've signed up for the
Have you?
trial program.
Oh, right.
I've not got access yet,
Okay.
but I'm quite excited to give it a go.
Right, okay.
Definitely want to give it a go. And I can see it being really, really useful, actually. Can you see yourself using it?
Yeah, I think I would use it because there's often times where I'm not the best programmer in the world, and the sort of things that I've been asked to do are usually things that have been done a million other times by a million other developers anyway. So in theory, I don't need to reinvent the wheel with my own custom crafted code. I need something that's a robust solution that's already been written by somebody else. And if that could suggest to me a robust solution that someone else has already written, fine.
Because it's AI, you don't know the process that it's gone through to get to that solution. It's not necessarily guaranteed to be code that someone else has written works. It might have pulled together lines of code from 5 other places that don't work in combination. So
in that case, it's rubbish.
So you'll have to vet that it actually does what it's supposed to do. It's not like taking something from a book or from a previous solution which is verified and tested and robust. It might go, oh, I like that line from that project and I like that line from that project and I think I like these lines, I'm going to merge those together to create my own new line of those. There we go, that'll do. And it thinks that works maybe, but it might not run. But if it does run, is it going to produce the right result? And like you've just said there, like you want to trust it because you think it's going to have a better idea than you, but it might have just done something completely rubbish. So you can't just trust it like that. That kind of proves my point in a way. So, what do you think? Would you use GitHub Copilot? You can leave us a comment below. If you like this video, there's plenty more. We've got a podcast called The Unusable Podcast. We also do other videos, so like and subscribe and all that other standard YouTube-y type stuff. Music is by Gold5472.
You can email us at podcast@theunusable.com.
Or you can tweet us at The Unusable Podcast. That's
Okay.
it. Until next time, bye!
Bye.